All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed some of your earlier mentoring sessions. So a couple of you will be finishing off your mentoring sessions as we speak. And some of you will actually be joining the session from 6 to 8 as well, with a bunch of other mentors who have joined. Just a quick feedback to everybody. You need to be online all the time while you're in this competition. It's it's a bit sporadic how some of the mentors are going to be interacting with you. So please make sure to catch up with everyone because they're dedicating their time and a lot of energy to be here on the weekend with you. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to one of our esteemed guest speakers, Jonathan Steingeisser. I hope I'm saying your name right. I'm sure I'm not. A little bit about Jonathan, old friend in the startup ecosystem. He also happens to be the head of design at Property Finder, where he basically is balancing his time between leading the design team and service design improvements. So Jonathan brings a really great combination of technical skills, creative vision, innovative thinking, and he really will help you direct your businesses, your startup ideas in the right way. He has almost more than 17 years of design experience with startups, retail, tech, nonprofit, a bunch of other sectors as well. And he was really passionate for design innovation, and he's very involved in continuous improvement through operationalizing design and research practices. He's been advising startups all over the world, from San Francisco to Dubai to Perth, Melbourne, and Sydney. And he's also the founder of Human-Centered Design UAE meetup and co-organizer of Service Design Perth and UX Melbourne meetups in Australia as well. Before I ask Jonathan to join me, what I'd love to do is direct all of you to be able to download the resource guide for each and every one of you. So I'm just going to share my screen for a second so that we'd be able to get there. I have dropped the link for you all here on the announcements channel. So let me just quickly share my screen and let me jump to this window. So if you jump onto Slack, you'll see under announcements, which is the first channel, everybody should be added in here from what I can see. And you just scroll down, and at around 1:40 this afternoon, I had dropped in the Lean UX handouts for you all to download. So please quickly download that before we get started with the session. And if you need to find it after we're done with the session today, we will share the drive link with you shortly. So let me just stop sharing my screen. And without further ado, I'd love to invite Jonathan to the floor. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Aya, for that wonderful introduction. And hi, everyone. It's going to be a pretty exciting and a fast session. I think one important bit to notice that this is normally a 3-hour hands-on session. So we're going into uncharted territories and going to try to do it online in an hour. But I'm not, if you can follow along with the handouts, as I said, that'd be great. Even if you take notes as you go along, I think this would be a great exercise for you to run with your team, maybe not necessarily right now, but at least try it right now. If you have any questions that pop up, jump along. So yeah, if you can also, I don't know, I think the power of the community, yes, it's a competition, but you're also here to help each other. So use it's a virtual hackathon, use the chat, use Slack, not just to interact with your team, but everyone else. If you could put your name, your role, your superpower, what you're hoping to get out of the session. We will have time at the end for some questions, but jump in with the questions in the chat as you go along. Aya and her team are going to be taking note, and then I'll go hopefully not too quick, and we'll have time for questions at the end. Very quickly, about me, I was born in Israel and my parents are Brazilian. I've lived in Singapore and Australia, most of my life in Australia. I came to the Emirates, to Abu Dhabi in 2012. I was the first UX designer at New York University in Abu Dhabi, and then returned to Australia for 5 years in Melbourne and then Perth, and been back here for 1.5 years as the head of design at Property Finder. So if you want to reach out, At any point, even after the hackathon, you have any questions, jump in, add me on LinkedIn, happy to chat. And I couldn't help but do a very quick shameless plug. As I mentioned, we've got 2 great speakers coming up in the next few months. So it's on meetup.com. You can join. We've got a meetup this week. So apologies, couldn't help we've got a Shilpi who's a great speaker. So very quickly, I think I've done quite a few hackathons, both in Dubai, some with Aya, Abu Dhabi, as well as in Australia. And I think it's important, we've got people from all different walks of life to just set the kind of bar and start with the foundations. You know, so what is UX? So it's now evolved. It's not just UX, it's human-centered design. There's many definitions, but one that I like, a simple one, it's the creative approach to problem solving. It's a process that starts with the people you're designing for and ends with new solutions that are tailor-made to suit their needs. If you just make assumptions and start building something and then look for your audience after, you're gonna be surprised and there'll be a lot of waste in that process. So what we're gonna run through today is very fast, very lean, prototyping and, customer development, in order for you to validate, to make sure that what you're building, what you're designing has an audience, it's fit for purpose, has audience, product market fit, and you will hopefully, succeed beyond the hackathon, not just with the hackathon. I think an important thing is, and you'll have on your team technology people, more UX or user aware people, and people with their vision and business goals. It's important to make sure that you intersect between all those 3. We're not doing technology first and just, pure AI or I don't know, whatever the, buzzword you choose. At the same time, we're not designing in a cave, right? We need something to be feasible and viable. And you've also got your business vision, but you can't be outside of this gray circle. You need to find that sweet spot. And that's what UX or human-centered design is. One thing I think, like sometimes people think in a hackathon, there's not enough time to do this, but I'd strongly encourage you to do it, is to do some interviews, do some rapid guerrilla style interviews with your customers. And this is the kind of information that you can use when you're pitching your idea, and also to course correct and make sure you have that. And I'm going to share with you the slides, by the way, after as well. So a super really easy way to do that in a standard interview. And interviews are the most common ways of doing research, are to just look at a timeline. Like my next slide has run through a connect the dots exercise. Nothing's new under the sun. Even if you're designing or developing something you think is brand new, someone is solving that problem today in a way. And you need to understand where are those pain points, where you can deviate, where are the trigger points to what they're doing today, to understand how they will use your solution tomorrow. So a great way of doing that is with these 10 questions. Now, obviously, these can be modified, but running someone through, when's the last time you experienced this particular thing? When's the last time you interacted with this feature, this product, this service, right? It's not all about digital. What was the reason? What was the trigger? Again, following through that, what happened? How did you think about it? How did you feel about it at each point of that journey? What were those touch points? Did you interact with people, with technology, with staff, with services, with, I don't know, hospitals, nurses, etc.? Did you use any smartphone, tablet? Was it just a PC or a Mac in the process? What was positive? What was negative? What happened after that? Did everything go to plan? Did you have any further interactions? How would you have improved this process if you could do it again? This is just a standard. You could do this in whatever, half an hour, however long you've got. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a huge number of these, but if you run through some of them, that'll help you with your idea to flesh it out. Even if it's not necessarily the perfect way. I think this is a great approach and a great tool. So I just wanted to kind of start with a few foundational things before we jump in. And one really important point I want to make is that the slides to follow now are not my slides. Full kudos and credit to this lady, Kate Rudder. I had the privilege of meeting her in Lisbon. I was in Abu Dhabi at the time, and I went to one of the best conferences I've been to, UX Lisbon. And the beautiful thing about Kate is that and you'll find a lot of designers and UX people, they don't hoard their intellectual property. They give you their slides and they say, look, I've taught you, train the trainer, now go and teach the world. And I've run these slides with her blessing through many startups. It's really helped, even if you're further down the line, you sometimes overcomplicate things, to just go back to basics, what foundations, who are our customers, what are their needs, and how can we, what are those core features that will solve those needs. So the first slide, hopefully you've got your handouts there and you're following along, is just a really basic, at a high level, DNA of your problem. Who are your users? And you could have many users, right? But it's about prioritizing who is your primary user, who's going to use your software, your idea, whatever that might be. What problems do they have? And what would be a proposed solution? So if you can just map that out in that first slide like this, that'll just help you to just focus on your core problem that you're solving. Who are the people? So an example is, there could be working parents with kids. What is their problem that these people have? They need to share tasks on the go. There's too much to do, not enough time. And what solution addresses that problem? And which people use the solution is a mobile app for delegating tasks. So it's as simple as that. But often, I've been walking, the floor in hackathons, and things get very complicated very soon. So I thought, even if you've gone far that hole, if you can align and agree on that as a team, it's a great start. What is the molecule of your idea? So this session is not about producing awesome UI. How do you know it's even awesome, if you haven't validated? It's not about making production beautiful wireframes, and it's not a perfect approach or a rigid point of view. There've been hundreds of participants who've used this technique, and you'll find a lot of similarities between what I'm showing you and Google design sprints, for example. This came long, before that, but it's about making products. It's about making an MVP. I don't know if for those of you who don't know what that is, that stands for minimum viable product. A low fidelity minimum viable product, which means what is the minimum you have to create in order to validate your idea with the world. You don't need to build hundreds of features or a lot of menus, you need to understand what's the one thing or the core set of things that your users, your customers want. So this will help you to focus, simplify, decide, test, and keep moving forward. What to expect? I'm not an expert on your ideas, but in the mentoring sessions, or even if we haven't been assigned to mentorship, happy to try to find some time to squeeze you in. If you can hit me up on Slack, hopefully I'm quite easy to find on Slack there. And then experimenting, getting that feedback firsthand. Now, this isn't going to be a smooth and nice process like this, this nice toggle. It's more going to be fast and crazy and, jumping around and going to feel awkward, but that's okay. Like I said, we're going to squeeze in 3 hours into an hour. And I think hopefully we're recording. If you need to go back, or if you have questions later when you do it, you can, reference it back again. There's a purpose to this. I'll be pushing you along, but even when you do it yourself, I think the point of this is not to labor on every single aspect, but to try to go through as fast as you can and pick those, how they say, whatever is top of mind is usually your first reaction is the right reaction. That's how you need to treat this. You may not like the pace, but like I said, that's okay. So what I don't want you to experience is, at the end of this process, but the code validated. The design was brilliant. We just never launched. We made an amazing thing, but nobody wanted it. And those are some of the things that the judges will be testing you on, right? That's why it's really crucial that you don't focus on those things. That's a fail, and it's a waste of time as well, because focusing on the right customer and the right solution is what's going to get you there, not necessarily something that's polished and brilliant, but no one would use. Another quick definition of, I'm sure you probably know, a startup is a human institution designed to create new products or services under conditions of extreme uncertainty. You start with your idea, you build, you've got your product, you come up with measuring techniques, you get some data, some research, you ask people, and you go over and over. And this comes from two things: Lean Startup by Eric Ries. I'm sure most of you hopefully have heard of this guy. If you haven't, then you can look him up. And user experience, right? That's why we've got Lean UX. And user experience is all about empathy for your customer, designing products, that people love and would use. The old way of doing this is one step at a time. And this is what I'm encouraging you, is not to do that over the next, 48, 72 hours, but to do that rapidly and quickly. So you don't, even before, I'm sure you've got some technology people that you itching to just jump into the code, but you can create paper prototypes. You can create mock-ups using Balsamic or using any of your whatever your favorite tool is, Figma, Sketch, etc., and just do something lo-fi and test those things and iterate on those things and get some feedback before just going for that final product. So another very quick definition, then we're going to jump into it. UX is a mindset. It's focused on delivering value, and it inspires the right kind of ideas. UX is not UI. Your first, if you are a UX designer or an experienced designer, please remove any references. Kate reiterated this. I was very passionate about it at the time and still am. UX/UI, you're an experienced designer. UI is one subset of your skill set. It could be your only skill set, which is okay. Then you're a visual designer, right? And what we're going to do today, and I think this as well as in your slides, which will help you, it's kind of like your, I don't know, 10 commandments, your, your rules of engagement. You've got users, they have needs. You've got your vision, and you need for those users with their needs to come up with some use cases. We need to prioritize those use cases and develop some features that will meet that need. And then we'll sketch, we'll prototype, and we will have our minimum viable product, right? Our mock-up, our prototype to start with. So we're not gonna go spend 7 minutes, but to put some detail into your people, you can create some star people. Here's a simple way of doing that. And then you can add some context. Like you're gonna need to draw this in a minute, thinking about your user in their environment. Are they inside? Are they outside? Are they on the go? Are they in a train? Where are they? Are they in a hospital? Are they in a waiting room? Think about the setting. Think about the environment, right, that you're designing for. Really important. And put some emotion into it, right? We've got, with just some minor changes here, you can see you've got a lot of different emotions. So today, what is that experience? What do you want that experience to be like tomorrow and in the future? Where is the pain today? So to put some more color into what you're designing. And now we're going to create a persona, which is a fictional character or an example of your audience, your user, right? So we're here at the UX stack, we're at the start. And here's an example, okay? Mary is our user. And if we just focus on this top quadrant, she is in her home, you can see that. She is quite frustrated, you can see from her expression, and she's saying, I can't think when I'm too busy. So and you can do more than one of these, right? You could have a few different people. There could be the nurses, the doctors. This could be a 2 or a 3-way marketplace you're designing. You need to think about those different audiences. So your first step is to just draw that person. And like I said, you probably won't have enough time as we go along now, but if you are, then that's great. Who is that audience, that your target audience, your user? And then write some facts about them. Their age, where do they live, are they married, their income maybe, anything else, any other demographics that's specific to them. And try to be specific. Think of that. It's not a real person, right? But think of who that is. The next step is to create some behaviors. And this is where that Lean UX concept comes in. So hopefully you have some Post-it notes. wherever you are, or you're using, I don't know, Miro or some other tool, and you can create digital Post-it notes. But it's nice when it's real, just to get a feeling for it. And you can brainstorm some 10 behaviors that are, perfect for solving, that indicate that your customer is the right customer for you. So an example of that is, has a housekeeper, buys takeout 3 nights a week, frequently feels overwhelmed when, she forgets something. What are the behaviors? And once you've got 10, or even if you have 8, this is a great part. And, I love it when we get to this stage. Split it into 2 piles, less important and more important. And then when you've done that, take all of the less important Post-it notes and rip them up. Rip all of them up and forget about them. Focus on the more important. Okay? And then write down the more important in your behavior quadrant. And the same thing with needs and goals, right? Come up with 10. What are the needs that solve this problem? Why do they do behaviors? How are they solving the problem now? And then come up, split them into 2 piles, rip up the less important, and write down the more important. And the point of this is to teach you to focus, right? It's a hackathon. You don't have a lot of time. Keep focus. And this is something you do for every decision you need to make, right? As a team. Brainstorm it, Post-it notes, less important, more important, and focus and move on. Now, we've got our user, our prioritized user, the number one person who's going to use your idea. Now we need to understand the value proposition, right? Value proposition means, why would that person use your app, your experience that you're creating? And we're up to here. We've got our user and their needs. You've got your vision. We're up to use cases now. And again, I've got an example for you of 6 use cases. I'll give you, there's another example here with Mary, for example. So what are 6 different uses for that, this experience that you're creating could be used for? So for example, Mary gets reminders when she's near a place of her task list. So if she's in a particular place, it says you're near a store. So a reminder, you might need to, I don't know, go shopping or something. Know when someone in her family finishes a shared task. So she'll get a notification. She's at home. Come up with 6 different use cases for your idea. And the other, users maybe that your particular user is interacting with, and put some detail. You've got this in your handout, and draw that out. And again, this is something that all of you can do as an exercise as a team. Sketch all of that up, but give yourself finite time, right? Time box with whatever your startup's called, your idea. Mary, Joe, Yusuf can, and come up with those use cases. And again, this is a really great exercise to do with your team. You can vote. You can, put some stickers on. Maybe ask your colleague, what are the top 2 out of all of those 6? And you, as the founder or whoever the decision maker is, or as a team, you can just pick one. So you will put 2 dots by, say, your colleague, and you, as the founder or the decision maker, can just pick one. And then that one thing, that one key use case, is what you take to redraw in more detail. And again, you've got this worksheet, with Taskadoodle, Mary can know when someone in her family finishes a shared task. Okay, so, and draw a bit more detail into your drawing. So we've got our use cases, and we've picked that one use case. We've got our user and the need. Now, the next thing we need to do is brainstorm some features. So what are some features needed to create that one, for that one use case? So an example, again, I've given you in your sheet, you can stick the Post-it notes in. To deliver on the value proposition, we will build these features: a 5-item to-do list, task share, and a status tracker. So what we have now is our persona, our user, Mary. What can the user do with our product, our value proposition? And how will they do that with some limited features that support the use? So what are the top key features needed to deliver on that? And that's what we're going to focus on. And how do we know it's working? How are we going to measure this? And it's through tracking some actionable metrics. And I mean, you can refer to this. This is a really great sheet. I use it today a lot, no matter where I've gone. So a good metric measures the usage of your product by a person. The usage should be specific to features that deliver value to that user. So, how many signups or total number of registered users. But an awesome metric or a great metric makes you look at all the other metrics and say, none of these matter if we don't get this right first. So the percentage of users who share the task 3 or more times a day per week, because that'll help you to focus on, again, building the features, building the onboarding, winning, getting more customers to deliver on that. So what with time constraint, ask you to do is just brainstorm one idea. Now, when doing this properly, obviously, you should do the full, dump and sort method, dividing into 2. But now improve that metric. Try to get it. So a good way of testing it, does it have a number? Is there a time basis to it? And is there an object basis? Right? And that'll help you, again, to hone in on how you're going to measure the validity and the value of that feature. So you can make a dashboard. Again, I've shared this with you, and you can create the goal. And I'm sure, like in a lot of hackathons, a lot of you will go beyond today. We'll want to meet with your team members and develop the idea further. Maybe go to a accelerator. And these are great ways to to kind of keep you honest, to keep you focused on what you're trying to achieve. So what do we have now? We've got our user, a value prop. We've got limited features, and we've got actionable metrics to measure this on. So once we put it all together, we can tell our story. That's our UX stack, right? That's our minimum viable product, or minimum viable concept. And you can tell the story. And this is a great tool as well when you're pitching at the end to the judges. This is how you can tell the story, right? This is the core of our idea, because that's the number one thing, right? Simplicity. Judges don't like you to get too complicated, too confusing. What is the core, the nucleus of the idea? Who is your target audience? Customer first, user first. What is the use case? What's an example of how you're going to make it a better world, change people's lives, of someone using your app, your experience? And now give me a bit more detail about that idea. What features make up that idea? How are you measuring if it's successful? And that's a great way, to kind of to summarize your concept. So, not going to ask you to share, but this is a great way for pitching and practicing. So patterns of work. Remember, sketching, especially people. Make sure you time box ideas, generate independently, and then discuss as a team. So use the power of the team. Don't just do one of these exercises for the whole team, but select the best. Do that whole divide and conquer with the post-it notes. Help decision making through organization. Work, put it up at the wall, talk to it, and have some quick decision making, dot voting, or however whatever voting method you like, because you don't have time, right? You have to make quick decisions. You don't want to. I think often you see teams labor points, but you need to be quick. So this way of working is hard. It's not a simple way of working, but it's definitely worth it. I think I'd encourage you all to try it. So a few other resources as well. There's obviously books and other accelerators, startup weekends where you can use this methodology. And here's a few example of those. I think we've kind of flown through it. I did have a couple of other things, but I'll jump in. I'm just gonna pause for 1 second. I think I had an unexpected visitor. Let's do some vacuum. just think about the questions. I'll be back one second. I'm back. Do we have any questions? I know that was quite fast.
Hello?
Hi, Aya. How's it going?
Good. I'm really sorry. My computer froze and I had to come back in, so apologies for the technical difficulties.
That's okay.
Great. Sorry, what were you asking? It froze. So we have a few questions in the chat. Yeah.
Sure. So should we go through the chat questions there?
Yeah, sure. So apart from those, I just want to check the general Slack channel to check if there's anything. Yes. So also, Rami, you mentioned in the chat as well as on the other side on the Slack, if the final MVP that they're submitting should be in the form of a video, a slideshow, or a document. I guess I can answer that question as we go down. And the second part is, which is best when presenting an MVP/user experience model? Does it depend on the type of product we are developing?
Yeah, great question. What are the rules of the hackathon?
For the competition, we can definitely submit the MVP within the video or slideshow that they're presenting. What we're recommending is that you basically will jump on a Zoom and you can record it. Once you record it, it anyway saves into an MP4 file. So that's one that they can submit in the final Google form for the judges.
So they don't need working code. It can be a prototype.
It could be a prototype, as long as I would say it's the best version of what they want to present to the judges. So for example, one thing that I would say is, there are cash prizes in this competition, which, even Jonathan, I'm sure you agree, that doesn't happen very often.
No.
If you can really prove why you deserve cash to go towards your business idea, it really should, let's say if you're presenting your MVP, you need to talk about how an additional resources or funds can really take it from idea to implementation. So I think that's super key for a lot of the teams when talking about their UX, because otherwise it's kind of like if you have a weaker product, let's say display of what you're trying to put forth in front of the judges, could be perceived as like you don't really need the cash to execute further or develop your product further. So I hope that answers the question. And again,
that makes sense.
Product,
that makes
yeah.
sense. But what we've been talking about, I guess one key point though is before like spending your whole weekend and tomorrow just developing that, I think the judges would really appreciate and will your thinking, to see your thinking behind it, and looking at the interactions that go through, not just seeing like one screen, for example. And the best way for you to do that is to mock that up and to get feedback from, again, your customers. I think people sometimes think there's not enough time on the weekend, but it's those teams that have done some rapid guerrilla kind of research that I've seen win competitions. So use your network, and don't just ask anyone. Obviously, you need to get to the right person, to the right customer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, if we look back to the judging criteria for this competition, the teams are going to be graded based on their stage of development, their feasibility, the concept itself. Is it unique? Is it something we've seen before? They're also going to be rated on their go-to-market strategy. So even, I would say, some of the most successful businesses in the world, in terms of, let's say, having raised funds, a lot of them actually didn't have a product ready yet. So a lot of it was just proving that the product had potential. There were customers that are willing to buy this product or invest in the service in particular. So I think when developing your ideas for the judging panel, try and take into consideration that it doesn't have to be a perfect product. And I think that's something that Jonathan also tries to highlight in every single competition, is like, try to get the best, let's say, idea out there in the most minimum viable product possible. So I think that's a lot of the feedback on this type of session. Yeah.
And so where are teams right now, Aya? Are a lot of them new and just meeting each other, or there are a lot of pre-made teams are already in play?
Yes, a lot of the teams were they came in together as a group. We had I would say, a lot of people who also met here in terms of adding more members to their teams, to see how they can really complement, let's say, some of the gaps they had originally when they formed their initial team. So we had an amazing, I would say, consortium of people without ideas, but with great backgrounds. We had almost 100 developers, almost 100 designers, and also 100 business people, so just with business backgrounds. So a lot of them were able to join teams as well. And I think over the course of today, we'll see probably more individuals trying to join more teams.
Nice. So yeah, just on that, I think one thing is that people sometimes rush to design and develop. I mean, you can rush to design, not just rush to code. So I think some of those early slides I showed on what a typical interview looks like, that could be great just to help you form your idea and your design. And let that idea be formed by your customer. So asking them, how do you do this today? Why do you do it this way? What works with that method? What doesn't? And trying to spend a little bit of time, or delegating that to one of the members in your team to then bring it back to the rest, really helps you to feed in to your idea throughout the process.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, also, it's probably talking from experience, right? So Jonathan, you're at Property Finder. I'm sure a lot of the times you want to ask Dubizzle users, why are you using Dubizzle? What is it about the service that you're receiving that you like? Trying to pickpocket, I would say, in a non-biased way, maybe not talking about even Property Finder as you do it, just trying to gather information about what is it that, let's say, pushed them to maybe go for a booking or order something from Dubizzle, that maybe, that would put, I would say, you're putting more data into your own pocket, just trying to figure out why your customer is going elsewhere. And, a lot of these startup ideas are trying to take market share from the current existing way of doing things. So it's really important for them to go and gather as much unbiased information about the reasons why those customers are going after those businesses, and what are the pain points when going through those businesses as well.
Yeah, 100%. And you reminded me, the good thing you did, like two really good points there. I think number one is, it's not only in Property Finder, but every organization I worked in, sometimes, all of that design to imitate the competition, why not test the competition? There's no law against it in the land. Take those, major players that you're looking at, or even something similar, and ask what people like about it, what they dislike. Because often we assume just because someone is the number one player, that's the best. It's not necessarily the best. They might have great marketing, but if you ask those users, they might say, oh yeah, look, I really like it, but there's all of these things that don't really work with it. And that could be the trigger, the start of your idea. So I think, you raise a really excellent point, and something we do often. I mean, and that's a certain way to minimize waste, right? Instead of designing something that's the same, go and test that thing. That's a working, the code is there, the design's there, it looks beautiful. You can run a quick, Zoom session with some of those users. And your second point, I think I totally forgot to mention, which is really, really important. It's something that the number one thing, thing I advise startups I've worked with, in all areas, both hackathons and very successful startups, is very often we have that founders, kind of block. We are just married to our idea as the best thing in the world, and we don't really test. We pitch, and it's super important for you not to just pitch and look for confirmation bias and say, this is my idea, isn't it amazing? And then hear people say, I love it, yes, it's great, please build it tomorrow. But try to, if you're that kind of a person, and try to get somebody else in your team to have that poker face, to just, not reveal exactly your, all of your passion, your emotion, but just try to understand whether you're testing your current prototype or you're testing somebody else's thing, and just go through like go through the motions. When's the last time you did this? What do you like about it? What do you dislike? What would you change? What was positive? What was negative? And yeah, the point you made, on bias, super important, of not pitching but gathering
information.
data.
Yeah, I guess one thing I'd love to know as well from you, Jonathan. So if you could share with us, perhaps, what would be the best way to gather feedback? So for example, putting a quick customer survey together on Google Forms, is that sufficient, or are there, better ways to also do that? Anything you can, or maybe other ways that they can do that?
Yeah. I mean, surveys are good, but surveys, I think the challenge there is they don't go deep enough, right? Surveys are quant. They're the what. They don't tell you the why. You can't go deep into understanding why did you do that. You can, even if you're reading metrics or analytics on a platform, or you're using, I don't know, some data on how many people go to whatever website, which is publicly available. That might be really interesting information, but you don't know why those people bounced off. There could be 1,000 reasons why they stopped using it. And I think, surveys will help you to cover kind of like a wider audience, but you won't get into the understanding of those trigger points like we discussed. Why did somebody go from the physical journey to the digital? And why did they go back to the physical journey? Are we not ready with technology today? Maybe there's an area that you should avoid, but it's only, I think one of the best ways is to speak to them. A one-on-one interview is the best way to get into someone's head. And it can be a guerrilla kind of a rough interview. You can use the questions I shared. You can look up questions online. I think finding someone that's even close or similar to your customer, because I know sometimes it's hard in your area. This is for doctors. How are you going to get hold of a doctor? But you never know online, right? You can try to approach people, or get someone maybe that's in that industry or similar, and just have, can I talk to you for 20 minutes, half an hour? I think there's less success in just going to a coffee shop or a busy mall, because that's not your user, right? You need to try to find someone that is or is as close to your user as possible. Otherwise, that feedback might be useless. Or might lead you down the wrong track, which is potentially even worse.
Jonathan, and also you raised such an important, and I would say probably a question that a lot of the startups have for us, which is, we need to also figure out how we're going to get more startups to ask questions to the most relevant audience. So, if we can really recommend to them how they can get in touch with a doctor in the middle of a competition like this, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I do think I actually did a health hackathon, which is amazing. It took like a year to get off the ground because of all of the authority permissions. It was a very passionate doctor. who was amazing. And what they did create some of these user groups. So that's what we do at Property Finder, for example, right? If there's a particular kind of user that's hard to get, we build a user group and we incentivize them and we say, look, we'll give you 1,000 dirham or whatever, 250 dirham, if we can speak to you once every 2 weeks for the next X amount of time. And I do think, maybe perhaps for future hackathons, or, you never know, right? It's possible if some of the organizers could quickly see if, just like you have a mentor, you've got an actual user who is within the industry and can give their time in half-hour slots to say, hey, here's just to help facilitate that right audience, be it a nurse or a doctor. I mean, you could also, I don't know, I probably shouldn't be suggesting this, but I do, I was going to suggest go to some of the places where you can find some of these people, but that's probably not a good idea. You don't want a bunch of, if there are people on either here or anywhere around the world in lockdown going to already crowded hospitals, so forget that idea.
No, that's a good point. I think it's also very interesting, your recommendation on adding users as well into the competition so that people can really get the value in terms of that quick turnaround time. You're only here for a certain amount of hours and you want to prove your product in the most tangible way. So I think you're definitely right on that. It's definitely a good idea for a next competition.
I think though, when I did, I think it was, you were involved in that startup weekend. It was like 2014 or something. I met an amazing guy who became a very close friend on Twitter. He just liked some of my tweets. We started direct messaging. I gave him and his wife a tour of NYU Abu Dhabi. He was visiting here from the US. He then, hosted me really nice in New York. And that's how things happen these days, right? You can, I think on LinkedIn for sure, you can see people's profession on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever your platform is. There's no harm in trying to connect to people or asking your network, do you know anyone in any country, whatever happens to be, a nurse, a doctor, a medical professional, whatever that might be. I think you will get invaluable, not just points and win the competition, but you'll get the right data and you'll be able to properly measure your idea with the real world, because these are people who live it every day and they'll go very quickly, yes, love it, that could help me here, here, and here, or no chance, you don't understand the complexity, I would pivot, and that's the kind of information you need as soon as possible.
For sure. No, those are really great points. And I hope the startups listening who had the time to kind of just jump into this amazing session with you, Jonathan, honestly, really, it's important to be vulnerable as startups and to ask for feedback. And I think that's the most important thing in this competition. That's why, a session like yours is really pivotal for a lot of the startups listening in today. So thank you so much for your time. If anybody has any more questions, I think we have one. One lady just mentioned, if we have not run a pilot, how do we present our idea? I guess if you'd like to take that one.
So present the idea. Does she refer to present the idea to
the judges?
To the competition, to the judges?
Yeah, to the judges. Would you like to specify? We just received that message from you.
Cupcake girl.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you mean to the judges or if we haven't run a pilot, how do you present your idea? I mean, I can talk very quickly perhaps about usability testing, lean usability testing. And like I was saying, it's not about pitching whatever you've got, but it's about showing someone a screen. Okay, she means to the judges, but I'll tell you anyway. It's about showing someone your experience and asking them to complete a task. So I think one really important key that we didn't mention, when you show someone your prototype, don't ask them, do you like it or would you pay for it? You need to ask them, how would you go about doing X, whatever the job to be done, whatever the core experience you'd like them to complete is. And then once they do that, yes, you can ask them, what did you like about it? What did you dislike? But not, here's my idea. Do you love it? Would you pay for it? Those are two big no-nos, I think, important to remember. And maybe you can take the next one, Aya. How do you present your idea if you have not run a pilot to the judges? Because, yeah, definitely not expecting big pilots by anyone. It's a short amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be interesting to see how some of the startups are going to present their ideas, whether it's an app or a website. Again, we've shared some material with all of you to be able to do everything at zero cost throughout the weekend. So we have proto.io, we have Wix or Squarespace, a couple of just different websites that can be just your Robinhood versions of your designs, of your ideas, just so that there is a more, let's say, a more friendly introduction of your idea to the judges. And these are things you can put together with no designer on your team, although we do have a lot of designers in the I Need a Team channel. So feel free to reach out to see if anyone can support you. But I think we've covered, I would say, the majority of the questions here. If there's no more, I guess we can wrap up since we know it's Jonathan's birthday. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for presenting on your birthday.
Thank you.
Have you here, and I guess another milestone for you is that you got to do something cool and different on your birthday this year.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, even if thank you, if we haven't been paired up as a mentor, happy on Slack or on LinkedIn, if you add me later to chat or to give advice, I do a lot of that, and it's a pleasure.
Pleasure to have you. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you, Aya. Thanks, everyone.
We'll get your support for the rest of the weekend. Thank you. Have a nice day.